It's okay. 여기 김치와 여기 김치인데도 네 그런들이 그날라 기체 신나서 거기 믹시크행 님의 준다라 그런 보고 치치도 멤버.
So when we start, we'll be starting with this practice you have on the table on page 7. Will come up on the screen. From the heart of the sacred, the 100 deities such as Shiva on the peak of the cloud, resembling the heart of the extremely white these come here together in the sun. In the sky, before me, on a line through my perfect pure is my heart of light. Supreme field of merit from my line of faith. Things alive for 100 eons, spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence and understanding of the extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is the ideal ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiant and beautiful with joy renowned. To you who are able to see, hear, and remember, I pass straight. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, frankincense, lights, and waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and beautifully illuminated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues, body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the 3 vows I have collected from the beginning of time, I confess each and every one with breath from my heart. You strive for much learning and practices of the generate age to make everything from riches is meaningful. By abandoning their worldly concerns, they are sincerely rejoice in your existence. Perfect pure removed from the veering clouds of mystery and passion, the sky of the Dhammakaya. Please let all the rain of the divine incense of Dhamma flow receptacle for those to be subdued exactly as they do. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings that all transmigrate beings. And in particular, may of course the essence of perfect Buddha's unstructured teachings shine forth. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa, his two sons, they find my family to all things will be able to live, practice, and actualize in each and three the glorious one Lord Tsongkhapa, who had the morality and the memory of all way of life, was courageous in these things of conduct and the sons of victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the two stages of supreme bliss and emptiness.
Edam Guru
By the force of having driven and requested in this way, all of beings of white light are emitted from the heart of the perfect pure Father and Son, and combining into one being and one form. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all our sickness of spiritual harms, making harmless aspirations, and without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. And then on page 13, it's 5 lines. Nigme sewe cheshen tremes, Jive kemper one kosham koyan, Upon others process congrega, Kanche pete suken sonka, Yesan shanti shata sovade, Nigme sewe cheshen tremes, Jive kemper one kosham koyan, Upon others process congrega, Kanche pete suken sonka, Losan shanti shata sovade,
Geshe
Sanji Chudong Kodi Kanki Turdini Tawa Good morning, everyone. Because Kim Chung in Lamrim, Lamrim, Kanshi Tamu Kanda Tuku, Rani
So, good morning, everyone. We've been covering Lama Tsongkhapa's middling presentation on the steps of the path of enlightenment. So, let's just look at where we are in the text as we're going to pick up from the point of we left off yesterday. So, let's close this one. Well, the other yesterday, last week. So we're looking at generating certainty with regards to the general presentation of the path. That is the mean to extract the fullest potential of a precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses. So generating certainty with regards to the general presentation of the path consists of 2 points. First off, we spoke of how all the Buddha's teachings are contained in the path of the 3 types of persons. Now, we started to look at a few points with respect to this section. We began with point B that explains how persons of small capacity attain higher states. So we read through this section and it ends up with a quotation from Atisha's Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment. Let's just read through that. It says, whoever pursues by any means the happiness of samsara only, just for his own benefit, should be known as the least of being.
어딜다 지당 넘버 2 banking gross give chung jin chimbo se 아 그 개버디 so the 아니 some 개버 요 some 그냥 아 지금 됐잖아 저는 이게 치마잖아요 그 치마를 먼저 하다니 공간 좀더 비춰 되는데 아 감사드려요 you choose 아니 장이 코다나서 두면은 타고 되는 기억들이요 기억ings 선제 탐지기 체제들이 산지 컴퓨터를 되는 기억 전부 소리에서 기억총 이상의 컨디션이 아니 그 디지털에서 저지 관계 아시죠
So those of you who have gone through similar sets of teachings, you're used to the presentation of dividing different types of practitioners into the small, the medium, and the great scope practitioners. So small, medium, and great scope being. Now, when we speak about them in terms of small, medium, and great, what we refer to is the extent of one's mind. In a sense that we speak about a way of thinking. So you can have the least way of thinking, a medium way of thinking, and the most extensive way of thinking. So we're beginning this presentation with a person that would have the least degree of thinking, in the sense that what they would be concerned with is attaining a high status rebirth in the next lifetime. They would be aiming at attaining a high state of rebirth as a human being and the like, which means that rather than being oriented towards affairs that belong to this lifetime only, their orientation would be what will occur to them in future lifetimes. This is the least type of state of mind, you could say, or broad-mindedness that we speak of in relation to those of the small, the medium, and the great capacity.
산이 좀 된디 당한 직접 이 군주성만이 직접 때문에 산지디 난소에 직접 때문에서 난소 공기 예 접중이 쓰는 공기 같이 범었다고 시야 결과로 왔다지 공기 아니마 접때문에 아니 접기 남기 리바들이야 숨도 장이 봤어 딜이 마치 concept amazon conchus di ani kyo chima ya monto padami como dendi ninji mantala godas izu tanganzo sanji chomde di bujala chogola ani susu samdo di kazus biche tangu ye di never de sanji di lavje di la shami ani rang sem da melon mangala ye sunye shawa nansi and countries in the village station and kids you choose something living never know any when the get jatam yo tangoya yahan pe chendele yo tangoya yahan pe dadani yo tangoya but dindi jigne da cha yo ki same thing sort to go was a
Which means another way of looking at the states of the path of the three scopes being is in terms of the way that we go for refuge. So as Buddhists, we go for refuge to the three objects of refuge, to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And the first object of refuge is the Buddha, who we regard as the teacher of refuge. So for us, as when we go for refuge to the three objects of refuge, and we regard the Buddha to be the teacher of refuge, we become followers of the Buddha. So then the Buddha gave sets of teachings, and the least set of teachings that he gave in terms of one's way of thinking is to wish to attain the state of a high status rebirth in one's next lifetime. So then, that being the case, when we look at the different levels of teachings that the Buddha gave, and the least one is teaching how to attain a high status rebirth in one's next lifetime. If we see ourselves as followers of the Buddha, then we can look at how the teachings are reflected in our own attitude, like a reflection in a mirror, so to speak. So is it that in following the teachings of the Buddha and following the Buddha, do we implement that type of attitude in which our main priority is not on this life, but begins with what will occur to us in our next lifetime? If we haven't even reached that level of thinking, then it means that we need to make some changes into the way that we think. Either you can say in terms of, at least at the very kind of the bare minimum, is to start to think of what will occur to us in our next lifetime, and to make sure that we shift our priority from affairs of this life to next lifetime. Not only this is what we need to do if we regard ourselves as followers of the Buddha, we need to do it in this life. We need to start from today. In fact, you can say that we need to start doing that right from now. Yeah. It's like the fan is telling us, please just go slower. Otherwise, like, fall down and bye-bye head. Sorry?
어디에다 닌자 당한주 하세다 지당이 갈카보다 여러 왔을 때는 지금이 개인 군주소에 대화샤세다 안지 내교리 케네세 안기왕하시 케네 것에 소소바 이 무슨 통화투기 갈카보다 여러 이내야 니버드 베전치니 딸지 신주 제바이나 델리아 균신 통역이었지. 최고서. 이 통이 아니 깨어치마니 내주려서 하지. 이제 때문에 내가 있나? 특히 산지기 두시 델리아 취약하고 싶어. 가서 산지기 최고라 연삭이 너는 규통을 최대야기 진짜 아니 랑마시도 공체 충실도 깨어치만 운전 하더니 공간 싸움다 never 되는 얘기가 인자 먼저 깔게스 야고에서 셀비 땅이야 지신데데 마이마 아니 성대 상가 꽤 기심을 했어.
It's a complicated point from the viewpoint of, first of all, checking out, assessing what the degree of trust or faith that we have in the Buddha's teachings. What is the degree of trust in the existence of past and future lifetimes? It's a difficult point because it's not that we can see those states directly or evidently, and that makes it difficult for us to think. So we make effort and we check and assess our attitude. And when we do that, we find out that it's hard even to be regarded as a genuine follower of the Buddha in terms of our orientation. When you check it out in your own mind, you can assess whether you're considered to be even the least type of disciples or follower of the Buddha, in terms of whether your attitude begins with being concerned first off with what will occur to you in your future lifetime, whether you pursue higher status rebirth in your next lifetime. If you are, then you can say that then you make it into the ranks of those who are considered to be more genuine followers of the Buddha. But if your orientation, the list of your orientation is what will occur to you in your future lifetime in terms of higher status rebirth. If your focus is more still on what will occur to you in this lifetime, then you're not regarded as a genuine follower of the Buddha. So then we can check our own attitude and then assess where we are in our states of the path. So this is what we need to think of.
아니 rangi shenpang 성의 될때 인구여라 진짜 and dileva ina ram maki and ro maki said you are that kanji thamoya and never mado hembaji meva inza and in the kio chimas in the Jim dinding a gorge, but dinding service.
If our focus is mainly on this lifetime, we can easily see how it affects our behavior. Because if our main focus is on whatever we can get in this lifetime, whatever benefit, profit, or what have you that we can get in this lifetime, it is so easy then to get involved with attitudes in which we seek our own victory, even if it comes at the expense of others. So we want to be victorious over others. If we get what we want, it doesn't really matter if others are on the defeated side. And as such, it's so easy then to get involved with actions which are harmful actions, harming others. Actually, this attitude that is focused on this lifetime only, in which you seek your own benefit, even if it comes at the expense of others, it doesn't bring you any benefit. It's only harmful. So this is also what we need to check with respect to our attitude. Are we behaving in such a way? So then we might be thinking that, to begin with, I don't really see past and future lifetimes. And also, I don't quite understand the way that karma works. So it's really hard. But what it means is that we need to make effort then to come to see what we cannot see, to understand what we do not understand now, to attain things that we have not attained yet. And through making effort in those areas, we will progress along the steps of the path that lead to the state of liberation and enlightenment.
Lamrim Korang Tebachimbu Vishwacharita and it Tebachimbo and Tebachimbo Song Simchan Tunchik Hilde Chanju Senkia Chanju Sang Tennis and Sanji Kumbo Junior Chibinza Simjin Hilde which at the Tebachim Vishwacharati Chagoras. These are the Duja Simjin Hildelaya Nigga with Hilda Tadu with Nishani Nigga with Hildi. Mondo had the main comedy, negative. The Kim Chung Galaya and so and somebody Jangoya. That had to be Talaya and Nileda had to be and Nileda and Tomsi to become in laborious.
So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Now, on top of that, when we look at this genre of literature that explains the states of the path to enlightenment of practitioners of the three scopes, the small, the medium, and the great scope, we keep in mind that this set of teaching is a Mahayana teaching. It is part of the Mahayana tradition. And as such, the goal of this tradition is to lead disciples to the state of Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. This is the type of orientation that we take when we think of the steps of the path to enlightenment. So then in order for a certain student, certain disciple to attain the steps of the path, to attain the state of enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, they need to progress along the steps of the path of the three scopes being in order to, first of all, secure high status rebirth, which are temporary states of rebirth, ensuring a succession of good rebirths in the future lifetimes so that they would be able to continue and pursue the state of liberation and the state of enlightenment.
Here the Nilelas, the 30 Nilelas, and Nilela is called the chosen to be Tavadan, Hanji Kimbo.
So first of all, we spoke of how persons of small capacity attain high status rebirth. Then we have the medium capacity practitioner and the great practitioner. And the states that they pursue are called states of definite goodness, certain goodness. There are two states included within that. The first is the state of liberation. The second is the state of enlightenment. So it says there are two kinds of definite goodness: the liberation that is a mere release from samsara, and omniscience.
Il dadinami ko le thwa tam tharwas da ko le thwa islamdi ko le thwa di wish bolaya hamu ko music chitu ko da dire da ko se di tangin no mamushu sai se mal ni gena ji kungi ani ko wi thamiya ni chamanti ko chayo chamanti ko woni thani ji thanda ji 운동 굉장히 지금 참 많이 걸려 살아와이나 상상만도 고야지 참 많이 걸려 살고 있어서 참 많이 걸려 거기 되셔야 돼요.
So when we look at those two states of definite goodness, the first one is described as the liberation that is the mere release from samsara. Now, if you wonder what is samsara, Geshe spoke about it before, in that it's hard to find a dictionary definition for samsara. When Geshe was studying in his monastery, he one day attended a debate in which one of the scholars was asked to give a description of samsara, the defining characteristics of samsara. He thought about it for a second, and he gave a really succinct answer that was cutting straight to the chase. He said that samsara is that state in which nothing works perfectly for you, in that there's always something that is not quite right. This is what samsara is. So when you recognize that you are within that state in which there's always something that is not right, there's always something that is not quite right, when you understand that, then you seek to be free from that state of existence. And so the first kind of definite goodness here reads that it is the liberation that is a mere release from samsara.
직전에 망이요레스 아니지 로초 아니지 수도 가지스 야바이냐 참만디가리 예바레스 겐고 참나 들리자 참만디가 인구요레스 그래서 이 참만디가 있다 코어지스 다디 규든지 칼테 밀레바레스 가지스 깔레 야바이냐 에샤 가지스 사샤바이냐 미 첨부 가지스 파바이냐 참만디가 냠도 용이 같이 되기도 하스 you call them levels level the remote some levels essentially this one as
And then when you think of this description of samsara in which there's always something that doesn't work for you, there are always issues where you don't get you don't get what you seek. Geshe says that at least for him, this is his samsaric state. We can say in general that this is a samsaric state, but not knowing where you guys are. Might be that you know that there are some people here that are free of samsara, but Geshe said that at least for him, he's still within samsara, which means that it still goes between those states in which nothing really works perfectly. There's always something that is not quite right. And we can see that in our samsaric life when we start to examine that, in that you might be wealthy and you still have problems. Sometimes the more money you have, the more issues and problems you have. That also happens. We can see that. Also, if you're young and you're still strong, it's not that you're free from problems. There are things that do not work out for you even when you're young and strong. And needless to say that the older you get, the harder it is to find the situations where everything works perfectly for you when things start to fall apart. So when we look at this samsaric state where things do not work perfectly, there's always something that is not quite right. You might wonder, how is it that we end up in those states? What are the causes and conditions that make us end up, that cause us to end up experiencing a samsaric state? It doesn't matter how much money we have. It doesn't matter how much effort we put into accomplishing what we want. It doesn't matter how strong our reputation is, how great our reputation is. There's always something that spoils the plot, that is not quite right. And the cause and conditions that are responsible for that are our own afflictive states of mind, the three poisons. Was a question? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll repeat the question for the people at home and also for the other people that might not have had it. So the question is, we are now looking at the steps of the path of those of the small capacity, which are mainly focusing on what will occur to them in their future life. But what about those that haven't reached a definite conclusion with respect to the existence of future lives? They're just not sure whether they exist or do not exist, but they're still motivated by a certain altruistic intention. Like, for example, thinking what will occur to future generations, right? What will occur to others in the future? So then it seems that since this type of person is not sure about the existence of future lifetimes, but still their orientation is rather than what personal benefit in this life is, what will occur to others, what will be the greater benefit of others, how or where do they fit within the sense of the path of enlightenment, within those three scopes? Is it that there's like an intermediate being amongst the kind of like, all right. All right. All right, so is there a third possibility rather than focusing on the affair of this life or the affairs of future lives? Dila Quran Kebo Chungosea di ani Nyantu gi Kewa den Tundunige, so Tundunige Rwa. Ja. Tadi Quran Peshe Kansa Yan Sumba den de Yamana Niba den de Sha Chogerves. Da Sumba Sena. Dila Kya Nachi Yoga di Tende Mebache Hamakwa di Yona Mena Toba den de Chi Stage Dwa. Ine Honzo Samlo Tandan di Kewa Dila Kepsang Kanto Badi Rangye Shenpon Dene Samlo Matambache Shendon Bashi Dene Samlo Tangi Resa Pena Zambolin di Chola Roy na Jama Mirabla den de Kandichi Yongres de Chi Pensam Kunelane Chi Lega Chiro Chizandi Kewa Chungun di Tawa Inarwa de la Kewa Chima Niento Tundunia Chiche Yamana Dima Imba Kewa Di So Chene Kansa Niba Chiche Kansa Sumba di Kewa di So Maina Yan Kewa Chima Yan So den Tundunigi Mare Chiran Chena Champagne Tone Lega Chigures Chizan Dende Shana Jigger Kalechinas.
Di Chidangi Kansaki Samloya Riksum Rigatama Chena, the Chip Hagmaras.
Oh.
Some Jamadayos. Inaya Kabdi 아니 타와의 탐지 팀의 주비 람라야 시전 주샷 파트가 타와 탐지 팀의 공간 디샤 디트비 탑시용이 아니 기우 숨 치워를 마도 강사 참아도 samsung 디나는 이걸 쓰라고 말았어. 이 용처로 계란세 지난 약으로 왔어. 그나 잠빈 디토리아 아니 쿠유토의 상관 계란만 신지 아니 계기하는 데 약으로 왔어.
Not only you can have a third person that have a certain attitude, Geshe reckons that since we're different to each other, we have different dispositions, you can actually speak about more types of people. It is very possible that there are more classifications that you can come up with, maybe 100 different types of people with different types of attitudes. That's definitely permissible. But still, when you look at the status of the path of enlightenment of the three scopes being, there is a clear delineation of the type of attitude that they have. Which means that if your goal is to follow the steps that lead to the steps of the path of enlightenment, this is how you were to arrange them. It doesn't mean though that everyone, all the people in the world, have to fit within the steps of the path of the three scopes being, because there's so many other people that fall outside of, or that are not included within the steps of the path of enlightenment in terms of their attitude. So amongst those people, you can have people of different attitudes. Like, for example, Geshe says that someone that is an environmental activist, going on, different, you can say demonstrations or different activities. They have this altruistic intention to be of benefit to others. And certainly someone can be motivated by a great degree of wanting to benefit others in such kind of activities, but it's not that necessarily they have to fit within the presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment of the three scopes beings.
아니, 제가 그런 야구 배우고 있어요. 제가 배 야구 통계에서 정시에 그 쟁이 줘서 그래서 나 노출 중이지. 안 쳐려요. 너무 쉬워요. anti and same being injury and shoes nam de mai ba khar chon na ji de and indeed and congress kana go is disease.
Well, anyway, since you brought up this question, Geshe also wanted to end up that he has a great appreciation to you, Paul, because first of all, it seems that in your attitude, and you're still young, you're not kind of mainly interested in amassing money, possessions, and so forth. It seems that this is not your main priority, and you have great interest in the Dhamma. So Geshe says so he has great appreciation to your attitude.
D and impossible. That D and it commit some of the that did you have the Benta on G, the Namju Mizana, call it Mashi Gabdes, Benjur down, and Chitangi, Love John Sober, Kasus Chevaina, and Chamandiva Tilly, had two races, Savan. 수직 타려만 했어요. 탑될 때는 벤줄 때는 가만히가 타려만 아니지 벤줄 집속을 아니 노종 이 간주 제바이냐 가만히가 습관 타려만 했어. 이 가만히가 타야 탑지 이까지 묘야를 보고 가해 매봐. 뒤임바 뒤다 세우 쉬지. 원나 가만히가 타라가 위험하게 했어 나와이나. You're the main follower and cases yet. Truthful Chigoya, rather goes wrong.
Whoever might be the person in question, might be kind of a great person or a lesser person. Everyone, you can say, all of us caught in samsara go through the states in which things do not work out perfectly for us. There's always something that doesn't work right. So in a life, it might be that we are wealthy, that we have a high level of education or what have you, but it doesn't mean that we are free from all problems and trouble. We can see that. We can see that it doesn't matter how much money you have or wealth that you have, how educated you are. When you look at society, human society, you see that everyone has issues. Everyone goes through the states in which things do not work out in the way that they want them to. There's always something that is not quite right. We can see that. And when we look for things that can eliminate those things that trouble us, that ensure that things do not work perfectly for us, we can see that it's not that there is a solution out there that we can buy or that we can get that will eliminate all of our problems once and for all. So here we're looking at those practitioners which are aiming at the state of liberation from this samsaric state in which things do not work out well. So then the next question is, does the state of liberation exist? Is liberation from this existential state in which nothing works out perfectly for us, is the state of liberation from that, is it an existing phenomenon? Does it exist?
That means that some people will tire that Kalakabu should be over the then on the repeat to what was Charles. In the da and Kalakabu should be the time the Taman with the Pilia that you don't shoot their way in the Yasayatam, but thank you what the Chavos. That being the ta, he know their area and hundreds of ton. This is hundreds of ton in a young Lavainus in the hundreds of Chivana, and Missy be visual choices. Tawad the Tumi, the Lam Digital Tony, and Missy Pesat and Devine, that deep and Tolia, Missy D. Tolia, Tamanti by Yortania, Tamanti by the new cherry of a Yajagan killing the yesterday.
And yet attaining the state of liberation is not easy at all. It's actually hard. When you start to think about it in terms of reasons, you can come to see how attaining the state of liberation is not an easy feat at all. It's really difficult. So what are our options? If you say that since it is a difficult thing to attain, is it best for me just to give up and remain in my samsaric state? So maybe it's better for me just to not do anything about it. Just remain as I am in my samsaric state where things do not work out well for me. Well, Geshe says that you can take different approaches to that. When you recognize that it is a difficult state to attain, you can still think that there are ways to reduce the difficulties that we experience in our society. Like, for example, Geshe says that for him on a personal level, choosing his path of life and becoming monastic and working in order to reduce his sense of desire, to try to develop a greater sense of satisfaction and contentment. He feels that, to some degree, feels that his mind is made easier, more comfortable, more at ease, even within this samsaric state.
And company but form of the visual choices here so far. And visual choices those here. The sun jumping and Yahasin and to fill Kibble and Shasha loves it in and come to those Chevana. He gets a yatam and it Kadus don't show deeply and Samaya digit jet words. Is that Kadu digit our deep Tamadi with the young daughters. The rich sound enjoy deep and Zidino Kishish. Is that is.
So that's the path that Geshe chose. But then, if you think that that's not for me because that's quite hard to become monastic and so forth, it doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can do about it. You can still work on developing a greater degree of satisfaction and reducing your desire. That can still be possible. So, for example, if you give yourself time to study, to develop your mind, you study not only the teachings of the Buddha, but also the teachings that were given by the great Indian masters, and also teachings that were given by Tibetan masters, by great masters of the past. So if you give yourself the time to study that, Geshe feels that you will acquire more tools for developing happiness and well-being in this life. You'll have more to work with in terms of reducing a sense of desire and becoming more content. So even if you cannot become ordained, it doesn't mean that that's the end of line for you, because you can still do a lot in terms of becoming informed, becoming knowledgeable about what you can do, and then implementing it in terms of reducing your desire and becoming more content. And also, most of you guys spend your life in having relationships, right? So different types of relationships. And when you look at the ways that you relate to each other in your personal relationships, if your tendency is to always look for faults in your partner, in the person that you're in relationship with, then that will give way to more arguments, conflicts, and states of unhappiness. Your mind will be made unhappy if you start to fight and argue and have a sense of resentment. You can see how it makes the mind unhappy. So even in your personal relationship, when you start to see faults in the person that you're related to, that you have a relationship with, you can also remind yourself that just like the other person have faults, you also have faults. So rather than obsessing about faults, you can also create an opening for looking at positive qualities. It also feels that if you also take such an approach, and there are also many other approaches that we can adopt from the Buddhist teachings. There are so many advice that I find within the Buddhist teachings that we can take into our life and introduce them to our attitudes, so that we, through that, develop a greater sense of happiness and harmony with others in this life. Now we said that this samsaric state that we're in is that state in which nothing works perfectly for us. So if you wonder, can we have examples of those things that do not work right for us, that are not perfect? Well, Geshe said that, for example, when he looks at himself, the body. Now, in Buddhist terminology, we call this body an aggregate, right? So the body or the aggregate is an example, an illustration of something that does not work perfectly. There's always something that is not quite right with it. Geshe is not sure how it is working for you guys. Maybe for you, everything is working perfectly, but Geshe says that for him, it's certainly not the case, in that it doesn't matter, for example, what type of clothes he were to wear. Even if it's like the best company, there's still something that is not quite right. If he wears shoes that are really expensive and from a really good company, there's still something that is not quite right. When we think of delicious food or the changing of weather to become nicer weather or what have you, there will still be something that will not work perfectly. It's not that you reach a state of perfection in which everything aligns perfectly for you. At least Geshe said that, at least this is his experience with respect to himself. For you guys, there might be that there's some people here that, everything works perfectly, but Geshe says that this is not his personal experience.
And dili khandas thar gures rather ding on dit of song dili khandas thar gures thalam yed the mess thalam yed the mess ya di khandas any chonsha khandas in kiran ras said so this simju chingu das right.
So then the Buddha said that the state of liberation from that state exists. It is possible to attain the state of liberation. That being the case, we might wonder, how then do you go about and attain the state of liberation? What is the way of doing that? Is there a path that leads to the state of liberation? Those questions arise in our mind when we start to think of the state of liberation. How can I do it?
Right. Any mi kashi ngada mi pe masaba cancel dindiyoros or dindi dugja di tamandio wala amala ngala kesus lavchi wala amala tubaja roena did not be.
So then when you think of this body, and Geshe says that this body, you can say that nothing works perfect in it. There's always something that is not quite right. Some people might develop then a negative way of thinking with respect to that. They might be thinking that, what is the source for having a body such as this, which ensures that there's always something that will not work right for me? Well, I got this body from my mother and father. They were the people that produced my body, and therefore they are to blame for my state of always having something that is not quite right. Well, if you think about it like that, if you blame your parents for all your problems, it's definitely not the way to go. So to say it more precisely, it's not that our parents gave us this body that is a body in which everything or nothing works quite right. It is a body that we have taken from our parents. And this is the way that we relate to the body from a Buddhist perspective. So this body is called the appropriated contaminated aggregate, which means that we have done the appropriating. We have taken this body rather than being given this body unwillingly. So we have taken a body. This is the contaminated appropriated aggregate.
Rather,
and we call this body the appropriated aggregate in the sense that we have taken such a body because we acquired it through a process that was controlled by attachment. Because of our own mind, because of the mind of attachment, desires attachment, we have taken such a body.
and 내가 change and less sound and 공부 중요하면서 싸워디 단 니모토 섬세디 예 최고 당한 기부 마시고 니모토 좀 최고 다 딘자 다 아니 공부 딘지 내야래야 아니 디 강고 최고야 딜레 타발이야 디규 아니 소수 상황이 규디 싸우니 내가 소고 두세 디 트레스 들어
It is due to being under the control of attachment, desirous attachment, that we have taken such a body. Or we can say that rather than just pointing out attachment and singling it out, we can say that it is due to our own afflictive state of mind, due to our afflictions, that we have taken a body. And the root of the afflictions is ignorance. So we follow a certain process by which, first of all, we begin with ignorance. On the basis of ignorance, attachment arises. We perform actions motivated by attachment, which cause us then at the end to end up with taking another body that is susceptible to problems and difficulties. So then when we look at this evolutional process, which begins with ignorance, we look at a process in which causes are being created for taking a body such as this. So then when you look at that process, you come to see that there is a way of opposing or resisting the causes for taking another body such as this. Opposing or resisting the taking of the body such as this, which means developing countermeasures or counter actions against the causes for taking up this body, would mean to fight against our own afflictive states of mind. The three poisons: attachment, anger, and ignorance. Yeah.
When we have a lot of gratitude for that, doesn't it help to counterbalance this idea that there's always something wrong with samsara? But it wouldn't just be, wow, that I've created a virtue to have this embodiment to meet the Dharma.
Yeah.
Then for me, it may create a sense of great joy.
So the question is, but no, we sometimes find those kind of seemingly contradictions in, or let's say idiosyncrasies in kind of the teachings of the Buddha. Because on one hand, we says that this body is faulty, that there's always something that is not quite right with it. But then we also say that we've attained a precious human body with freedoms and richnesses, and we should really feel grateful for that. So and that came about through having practiced ethical discipline in the past. So instead of when you think of having a body such as this, kind of feel grateful. This is really amazing. It's a good opportunity, good situations that you're in. So, Dila, that is so such an in Popotola, some of Tawaina, Tamajipa Kangan, Tola, some of Tanshtua. In a Kabdilayan, the Samlotan Dashemba, the Ganda Dawachi, Samlotan Tugiresa, and also Tajomilo Rinpoche Tobwa, and it Tajomilo Rinpoche Tobni, the Gyu Kanechi Savares, and Nyama Tsultrim Namatava, Shisha, Yamnenchin, Dilatani, Tajomilo Rinpoche Tobwa, and it Tajomilo Rinpoche Tobni. 그런 소대천법 베이스 삼로 당기 도사 네 뭐네 국가 야고치 삼보치 예스 삼로 당기 도사 최선 삼로 데이터 소 대저 밀로는 버치 디평 바시 타마디바 바시 되는 사운드 동안에 선선 가던 된다고 지 동해민도 했어.
다른 게 교총가야 교총 삼보치 원도 하다니 공부되는 이유였어요. 저디 아니 당신 누구지? 토요일에 저희 드려봤어. 나 이는요 대장기 nandu tunga samali trotwada deva tangji poptu yorasni zawnim poptu mabati nanjo hago das to hinza nandu tetsamli ya cham devaina tetsamgi yitsum devaina ani kiewad jiwjang ka kieju yemeti jache jan jatam thama chojredas hinza ani kiewad ditsam digmebati ani digmebati samlo digi ani diliya thon royagi kenza da maso chagdas hinza ani di kiewad di thog dunga di samgoya tsotiris odo lude tanjo ludi ani tensa mainga di samtang royo maris.
Yeah, Geshe says that what you pointed out is spot on. Geshe agrees with you. But then when we think of that from the perspective of the small scope, they're aiming at attaining a high status rebirth, which means that, to put it in a different way, they're aiming at getting a precious human rebirth with freedoms and opportunities, freedoms and richnesses. But then if you attain that state of rebirth with freedoms and richnesses, is that enough, in a sense that will all your problems and suffering completely go away? It's an excellent state of existence, but it's not that even when you have freedoms and richnesses, you're free from problems, because you die at the end of your life and you have no guarantee that you will be able to attain that state of rebirth again. So it is an excellent state of rebirth, having freedoms and richnesses, but just attaining that and sufficing with that is not enough, because it is limited to one rebirth, you could say, and you have, again, no assurance, no guarantee that you'll be able to attain that again. So then you look at this type of rebirth that we have now with freedom and richnesses, and you think that that's a great opportunity, because now I have a stepping stone for pursuing something that is even greater than that. So we don't kind of look at our precious human rebirth with freedoms and opportunity and think that I don't need it because I don't need to rely upon it. There's something else that I can do, because there are still problems with it. So it's not that we think that I don't want to rely upon that. We recognize that we have freedoms and richnesses, but then we also think that that is a stepping stone for attaining the state of liberation. On that basis, I can pursue something that is greater.
Di dunga granji ba samba teda tanju mulu ruchi samba dingi muteliya gawachi yo manis chig ya tro so de chigo is tanju mulu ruchi samba di manjuta ji ani drishol ra yasan samba dani di ani gyu samba de khalden chons lagi ani chi tabasu nyamni chi Tsultrim la ba so tools nyamni chi wo de chwa res lanta Mention village go na injin gudi tala tugodi musu gyachi tawya saman dogas ta dugdin ba saman digi ani gevin mention cho ani new gol ten choiza ta tikka godes kaya thabya ani tabasu nyamsu ne dejemo dilsimo khayo mas dini chidangi doste digi logar deya tunda ama samtandi nyamje koni 가서다
So these 2 points might seem to be contradictory. On one hand, we recognize the body. We look at the body as something that does not work perfectly. There's always something wrong with the body, or not quite right. On the other hand, we call it a precious human body with freedoms and richnesses. So these are actually not contradictory. There are 2 points that support each other. You can use those reflections in order to use the 2 reflections in order to get to one united approach. And when you think of those 2 points, you adopt 2 perspectives, one looking at a positive side and one looking at a negative side. From the point of view of the positive side, you think that this body that I have now with freedoms and richnesses is something that I've obtained due to having created excellent causes before. And the causes were the 3 trainings that I've undertaken before. Mainly, or the very foundation, is the training in ethical discipline. So when you look at it from the point of view of how you came to be in possession of such a body, from the point of view of what you've practiced before, what it highlights for you is that it came about through the 3 trainings. When you look at it from the point of view of the negative side, in the sense that you recognize that there are still problems and difficulties within this body, you think that the problems and difficulties within this body arise because of afflictive states of mind, because of anger, attachment, and ignorance. In order to eliminate them, I need to practice the 3 trainings. So you look at it from the negative side, so to speak, but the conclusion that you get to is the same conclusion, that in order then to eliminate those problems, you need to undertake the 3 trainings. So in that sense, when you look at a positive approach to the body and a negative approach to the body, they might seem to be contradictory, but they support each other in that from both perspectives, you get to the same conclusion, is that what you need to do is to practice the 3 trainings.
다들이 근데마 당그 디시온다 미문에 타워야 되면서데 다치나 대시 토야 와 기부 시험나 대시 랑버기 주도 토야 파키시르다 이메한테디 당한테 이마다 지진다 랑럼 용용은 당럼 가리야 아니 대시도 제리 아니 윤대시도 윤대시도 제리 양도 아니 랑제 테스 로트와나 야고도스라 이 제제
So then if you wonder, does the state of liberation exist? In order to investigate that, you need to look at the 4 truths. The Buddha taught the presentation of the 4 truths, and also what we need to take up and what needs to be cast aside in relation to the 4 truths. So obviously today we're not going to be able to spend time in looking at those 4 truths in order to gain a good understanding of what needs to be done, but January is upon us, right? The new year. So we're going to start the new year with a couple of weeks of teachings on the steps of the path to enlightenment. And Geshe will follow Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities as a succinct Lamrim text. And he will also combine it with some reading from a teacher's lamp for the path to enlightenment. And the topic of the 4 truths will come up. So we will get a greater insight or a deeper insight into the presentation of the 4 truths and what practices need to be done in relation to the 4 truths in order then to attain the state of liberation. So then it says there are 2 kinds of definite goodness. This is the paragraph that or the 2 lines that we have read so far in this session. So there are 2 states: the liberation that is a mere release from samsara. We spoke about that. And the second one is omniscience. Now the state of omniscience, which is the state of Buddhahood, is a state in which you gain a perceptual insight, perceptual realization into things such as the 4 noble truths, karma, what we need to take up, what we need to cast aside in relation to the 4 truths. All of these topics and more are realized perceptually. The state of omniscience is the state of Buddha. So So it continues in reading. In this regard, everything that has been set forth, starting from the vehicles of hearers and pratyeka Buddhas, which means those types of Hinayana path practitioners. So everything that has been set forth, starting from their vehicles, is included in the actual cycle of Dharma for persons of medium capacity, or the cycle of Dharma common to persons of medium capacity. So here we're looking at the steps of the path to enlightenment, which includes the steps of the path of the small, medium, and great capacity beings in order to lead a certain individual to the state of enlightenment. But the steps of the path of those who seek the solitary realizer and hearer's vehicle are included also within those steps of the path. They are included within the steps of the path that are shared with those of the medium capacity. So you can say that maybe some of Paul's question or an implication that might arise from that could be also relevant to how you might be not motivated by an attitude that is seeking to attain the state of enlightenment for the sake of others, but still, in some sense, your attitude might come under the section of maybe a medium capacity person. Anyway, here it says, persons of medium capacity develop disenchantment with existence as a whole. And having made the liberation that is released from existence for their own welfare, their object of attainment, they engage in its method, the three trainings. In Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, it says, indifferent to happiness of existence, one desists from evil deeds. Whoever pursues only personal peace is called a person of medium capacity.
남진 주비 탐니디 다 탐진 기본 남진 주비 탐니디 상하단 하신기 대진모 대인 깨우침 주고 깨우침을 인지침을 정원 그게 심진 동안 본체 세버체 체도 산지 토르제 체도 하지 주다 진리가 소버 그거 인지체 남진 장규 또도 동안 관심이 되고 양다서 뭐 군대는 깨우는 초이 무슨 소식.
The next point explains how persons of great capacity attain omniscience. There are two means for attaining omniscience, the great vehicles of second mantra, what we call Tantra, and the perfections. These two are contained in the cycle of teachings of persons of great capacity. Since persons of great capacity are under the power of great compassion, having made enlightenment their object of attainment in order to bring all the sufferings of sentient beings to an end, they train in the six perfections, the two stages, and so forth. In Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, it says, he whose own mind is affected by suffering, who thus yearns to bring to an end all the sufferings of others completely, such one is the superior being.
깨우sun 탄인이 속에 깨우sun 탄인이 조직반대하기 시작했지. 장수 체제와 마인과 이 신비 같이 연주망도 송여를 송거서 깨우sun 탄인이 따라서 너와 전진 소망 송소 깨우 총을 체들 걸면서 심하게는 이 외장 안데 이바디 And
it ends with saying, as the means by which these beings attain enlightenment, they are set forth under two headings, the perfections and mantra. The next section elucidates the sources for the terms, the three types of persons. So here we spoke of the steps of the path of the three scopes, the three types of persons. Now, when you look at this genre of teaching of the steps of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim tradition, Atisha is considered to be the one who initiated the tradition of the steps of the path to enlightenment. But the three scopes were not terms that he invented. There were other great scholars or great masters that have used those terms, the three scopes. So the section says, the terms three types of persons is determined in many texts, such as the Compendium of Determination and the Treasure of Knowledge, auto commentary. It continues with clearing out doubts and saying, although with regards to persons of small capacity, they are both those who devote themselves to this life and those who devote themselves to future lives. This is about the latter. One should consider them as engaging in the unmistaken means to higher states. So the point that is elucidated at the end of this section is referring to seemingly two types of people that might be small scope people. One of them would be focusing on the affairs of this life, and another would be focusing on attaining a high status rebirth in the next lifetime. So this presentation of the sense of the path of enlightenment is concerned with the latter, with a person that is not focused on the affairs of this life, but is mainly concerned with what will occur to them in next life, in the next life. There will be many concerned with, again, securing a high status rebirth. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's, you said that it's a bit confusing because not looking at, for example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, it seems that it's concerned with both this and future lives, and that is concerned first of all for the welfare of others in this life, or for other living beings, and also for the planet. But it is also concerned for future lives. So why then do we have to kind of say you either have concern for this or for that? Why can you have concern for both? This is Gotongi dosa, Kansana Garambuche, Toinalo, Garambuche, the Tawaina. The Halam Dichi Nigala Tosem Kuyo, there's Pena Kawadila, Pena Mishemba. Dungen Nyombaina, Nyogachuana, and Ingan, which is the Tosan Shiuchikoidus. Yan Zambulin Takoyu Layan, Mambochi Gongidwa. Ani Chesan Pesha di Kewa Dila Peshagi Mendos. Ani Yan not so Kewa Chimala Kare Yogi, Yan Ditola Yarin Buche to Sem Shiuchikoidwa. Chezan kewa di amena kewa chima se di la damka karichini chego bres. Ninga tuntunia waina yonge marves.
Di tijana can this no ignis. Zavi can be down to show us over. Chaton is in the US, the other shootings. Any Namju Salmamu, Lamrim, gave the Yata Mambu Sherry, Jones than 60 and that thing. So you was Kotawano, pension, children's, nothing serious.
Well, I guess I can start. You might be making a slight mistake with respect to those two options. But before we get to that, Geshe says that, first of all, having listened to His Holiness' teaching, Geshe says that this is great. Now, His Holiness teaches through YouTube or Zoom, so we have opportunities to listen to teachings given by His Holiness Dalai Lama. As Geshe said before, he might speak about one thing 100 times and using many words, and sometimes it takes as on as one sentence, one word in order to make it much clearer. So there's great blessings and great power to that those teachings carry. Just to begin with.
Ini tentang anjugi chen ditsam tendinyen jigu marse di chen ditsam tendinyen ki manche kacho chen di to go tamso jile chachi chen di tije de chola tangwaina chola ris lagoras modo chen di modo tangjo mi rumji toye di chido stam jigu marse de di yawroji desogoras ro ani tangjo mi di chido matawang 깨워치면 되는 예원이 가치예요 말이지.
전에 양대 쿠란 캐시했다노라. 그러나 야른 보체 셴둔 제기요레 단자물인 거라든 지기레 쿠란 계기 내서 돈에 제기 말와. 그래서 세디 계기 돈에. So Geshe says that when we look at the issues that His Holiness the Dalai Lama promotes, and then what the meaning is of seeking one's welfare in this life. To seek one's own welfare in this life would mean to, the Dharma interpretation that we apply to that is to seek affairs that are related to food and clothing and social interactions and reputation and so forth. So when you then look at your priorities in terms of your Dharma practice, then rather than being concerned with such affairs of getting excellent food and clothing and reputation and social interactions of social status, social ranking, and so forth, your priority shifts and you look at what will occur to you in future lifetimes. So that's one point. Another point is that when His Holiness is pursuing or is taking action that benefits others in this life, other people and also the environment, the planet, and so forth, the main consideration is not his own welfare, but for the welfare of others. So when we speak about not being concerned with the affairs of this life, we speak about it from a personal level. So if personally you're not concerned about your own welfare, and you're concerned more of what will occur to you in the future, it means that you're a small scope person. You might be concerned about the welfare of others, rather than being concerned about your own welfare. You are concerned about the welfare of others, and this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Another question on liberation. Is that possible by understanding the definition of samsara itself?
So with respect to liberation, is it possible that simply when you understand the definition of samsara, as Geshe explained it, that kind of nothing works perfectly for you, that for you would be liberation? Yeah. Dila tarabasya di yota mesya di tola sanotawa inarwa. Ani kowa gi tsenyi daran towa ina yamna hakwa ina chama diva sheta dindichi. Ngone hakwa ina. Ani koya di toya di yan tabagi dun shana digirbes. Tarpe tabagi dunta.
Tarpe kendi?
Yamina di peche Quran di chiyo di karesena. So koala newa inarwa. Koala neva chinchela. So yago yongires sama chadiba yongires di chiksan otangiwa. Ani kowa gi tsenyi hakwa ina chama diva kyangyan di yongires ina. Ani ngaso deba tan rewa dila soba de dichi. Nowa lige marwas. Kowa gi netsu takta haku warwa. Chisan netsu takta haku ina di taba tarba dende.
Tarba teni lo legresta. Ra.
Ne taba tsenyi bam marwa.
Teni lo teni marwa. Tarba teni lo le. Hasni kowa la ya yite meba jitwa ina. Ani di la ya shoti gitanga dichi. Tejo manshu di se di togu tamsu le tangi awte sivu shudras. The di tejo tinti stani and chi sonke chetu ya jana the digo that so kind of so to should was. Is it that tinti stwa ina that tele any some change the then there was a probably some mankorankodas is thinking and have a drug service.
When you understand the definition of samsara and that nothing works perfectly for you, you then start to develop the wish to be free from that. So long as you are focused on food, clothing, social interactions, in the sense that so long as most of our time is allocated to such affairs for that long, you can say things will not work out for us in that we have hopes and expectations that they do work for us, but we end up we set ourselves up for disappointment. So when you then see that in samsara, there's nothing that you can deeply rely upon. It is a state in which there's nothing that you can rely upon. It is not a reliable state. You then start to think, how can I break free from that? So you start seeking the state of liberation, but just thinking about it is not fully fledged liberation. It's more like turning your mind to the path that will lead to the state of liberation. So first of all, we need to see that a state of existence is not satisfactory. Once we see that it is not satisfactory and that there are flaws within a state of existence, then the thought, can I break free from that, will emerge. We will see that food, social interaction, reputation, and so forth, our social ranking, cannot give us protection from all those things that do afflict us. Then we'll have the thought, may I attain the state of liberation, which is starting to pursue that way, but just the thought is not a full-fledged liberation.
Or you see,
Sorry?
or you see, you stop.
Or you stop seeking, you mean food or clothing, or is that what you mean? Just the course the eaten meba the Hawaii narwa. Ani say good tam sum say the shuchen tuntun yagi marwas. Mahadi di na kyongires and some tangi marwa. Chizan daran chagirbis.
Geshe has not chidanda, not single ya, never engoros. In a pen low delay patient. Low dinawaya, when you don't wish on the machine, and longer dinawaya, and among the chip and the more than I joined Maris. The Majoya the Carlton chose, the Benjo down. And indeed, the which is like the cock of the young girls and children lead us.
Well, you can say that to a certain degree, just like Grace with you. Particularly when you consider, when you think of this year, 2020, in which everyone around the world has been affected by COVID-19, it seems that now, to a certain degree, there's more interest in the Dharma, maybe greater seeking of the Dharma, for some people at least. Geshe feels that looking at the situation that we all experienced this year, Geshe feels that we see that food, social interaction, social ranking, clothing, and so forth cannot give us this final protection from suffering, from problems, and so forth. So to some degree, we have a lesser expectation that we will find comfort in that. And from that, Geshe feels that we have more space for developing a greater interest in the Dhamma.
Modon some receiver model, Chetangi, Dinship, Chamil told something, and she that Tavasini won't trade. Joros, Modaji, Nego Tanji Mandi following some Nego Tamandi was on it, and Tower 2 years of Diomaros.
If you see the defining characteristics of samsara, if you realize that samsara is that state is that state in which nothing will work perfectly for us, and that would be like liberation, it would make the state of liberation be actually quite easily attainable. It wouldn't be that difficult. It actually be quite easy to attain that. But then when you start to look at it from the viewpoint of the four truths, you start to discover more and more subtle levels which are required in order to attain the state of liberation. So then kind of you come to see that actually it's not simply just realizing our samsaric states, but there are more things that we need to do that are quite subtle and more difficult to do.
Tharva said to the new save several shires. New save several tovalaya, new seronimba. New seronimba tovalaya, and new our dancing, and dam ever seen tovalist. Dam ever tony, new seronimba, and there again, new save you do in the image song. That is what ship sound Jango is red as well.
Liberation is the elimination of afflictive states of mind. It is the state in which afflictions have been eliminated. In order to attain that elimination of afflictions that have been eliminated, we need to say that it is a suitable thing to do. It is possible to eliminate our afflictive states of mind. In order to see that it is possible to eliminate afflictive states of mind, we need to realize selflessness. Unless we realize selflessness, we'll not see that afflictions can be eliminated. And without the elimination of afflictions, liberation will not be attained. So that is the process that we need to follow.
Penata Anzulo de la Zambaning Korania, Kangan Danganzo, only captures the and Mononga Samato, Hama Sansera. These Tanganzu Laya Nazar Dilit Sabcheji, Nanzula Yaganach. Dili Harvalaya, and Ken Kunjusuya, Capjugo was. Capture to the action of that and person goes to young Chavanda, Chinanga Chava, that Dinji for it.
When we experience difficulties and suffering, we turn our mind to the three objects of refuge. And of the three objects of refuge, we turn our mind mainly to the Dharma refuge. So then when we think of how we apply that this year, as we said, all of us have been affected by COVID-19. Did we use that situation as a way of turning our mind towards the Dhamma? It seems that in most cases, mainly we suffice with only making prayers, hoping that this situation will be improved. But in terms of using it into really turn the mind towards Dhamma refuge and implementing it in a greater way, maybe we haven't done too much or a lot with that respect. But then when we think of COVID-19 and how all of us are affected by COVID-19, we are actually affected by something that is more serious than COVID-19, which we don't often think about. All of us are affected by birth, sickness, aging, and death, which is much more serious than just COVID-19. So when we start to think of birth, sickness, aging, and death and how we're affected by it, and we turn our mind to refuge as a result of that, we can become more determined to put the Dhamma into practice in a genuine and perfect way. That will come about through study, reflection, and meditation. If we study, if we reflect and meditate, through that we can develop a pure Dhamma practice. And this is what we can think of in relation to our current situation.
and the language go to the country go to me to the part of the language is the shared deep. So the will be choices. And so the and the Mongolia and Yaralachi, Lagos to and Yaralachi, Mosuchi, one to me the Kosuki, the Shah Rasus, the P, the Fujikadi, the Penny, and Kaji Suzu, the Samuel, the Lodemo, Yitsumo, the choices, 우리 지금 개념적으로 테스트 production 유시치 그래서 기지가 나는 그 강시비 아니 자원 때문에 난 상기를 야 그치 타이비 살리 조 유시비 그래서 클리어 될 때문에 안치 상기 때문에 양구 안정권은 때문에 아니 때문에 굉장히 고생하는 남들 아니 굉장히 뛰어난 상황이요 아니 신수요 원하는 그집가 자타가 때문에 아니 셰마시 원하는 공부상을 수업이 다양하게 인증되는 아니 주투야기 상황을 야기 베키치모데스가
This is the last teachings on the cess of the path of enlightenment for this year. So looking at the time that we've spent together in looking at Lamrim Kappa's text, Geshe feels that first of all, it was fruitful. He had the opportunity to draw from these essential points from this text that contains such great meanings and put them across to us in to his best ability. So Geshe feels quite happy and content that he had the privilege and the opportunity to do it. Earlier on this year, before COVID-19, Geshe had a chance to travel to India, and he had an audience with his Honor Dalai Lama in which he received his blessings of body, speech, and mind. So that also Geshe feels on a personal level is something that is quite fortunate to, incredibly fortunate to be able to do. Now, thinking of all, so Geshe said that having come back here and resumed the study program, it feels that those blessings of body, speech, and mind of his honors had a certain effect on his ability to still continue with the teachings of the study program. So he enjoys it, and he is quite sure that also they carry on in his teachings to us. So now, as this is the last session for this year, it's a time also to dedicate all the roots of virtue that we have created together in partaking of these teachings, listening to these teachings, and we can first of all think of dedicating the virtues that all of us have created together for the sake of the long life and health of all of our spiritual teachers, which are included within our practices of Guru Yoga. May not only they live long and have a healthy life, but may also all their activities flourish successfully. For those that are still with us, may that come to pass. And if they're no longer with us, we can also hope that they will continue to send out, to emanate their enlightened activities, benefiting others until the passing of Parinibbana. And we were able to continue and participate, to take part in those activities because of people that have performed different tasks and jobs here at the center. So we have someone that did the translation. We also had the staff members here of the center, people that belong to this effort of that take part in the effort of preserving the teachings. Not only that, also we have people that have done different things in the surrounding of Chenrezig Institute, taking care of the gardens and the roads and the electricity and what have you. All of those people have, those that have contributed directly or indirectly to any degree, participating in the roots of virtue that all of us have created together. So even if they're not here now, or even if they haven't contributed to that directly, even if they are not experiencing it directly, whoever has contributed to that directly or indirectly takes part in our roots of virtue.
and that means it cannot malu zamado uziyan bichire pependo shimisra.
So in this year where the world was affected by COVID-19, Geshe said that on a personal level, he did not get sick. Not only did not get sick, he managed to still continue with the teaching program here at Chenrezig Institute. And part of it is because of Poonam, Geshe's GP, Geshe's doctor, who takes care of him with such great effort. Apart from kind of forcing down the medicine in his throat, she did all the rest.
This and someone who got to so we don't pay Chidan Zamani Lamrim, Kalakawa Shusha, Vikilea, and pay Suzu Gashi, Tem beans, Suzu beans, the Falani, Suzu, and Nivo Kanye Chin, she Matu Moto, and she said, Cook Chance to do it. Some of the children, the children, is a Kaganji, and some of the young people give each other mountain, Biblia, and Jesusia. How do you give our thing? And it comes from George, and Sanjan Tanji, and Sanji to be doing your shows.
And also, Geshe had the opportunity to study this text, which is of his most favorite text. So of course, there are many texts and teachings around the world, but this book, this text is one of Geshe's favorite. And being able to study that and teach that this year is also because of you guys that came here to the teaching. So we can dedicate our roots of virtue together for the welfare of all sentient beings of the 6 realms of existence. For their sake, we seek to attain the state of enlightenment.
Yeah, Lamrim didn't know ya. Ramu kind, but Tunda kind, but Jango which in Kolan kind, but Chima changing, Sivchin, question. Chagos, Lamrim Chimo in Bano, and if the Chongi Devamam any church and sort of go on the Page only a Mamu Jam and then going away. Lamrim didn't tell me about and now and Yash, Chaval, cannot do it. You give it and Lamrim give for it to the town to and it's it. And and Muyuruchi, Canada there was Chadi, so to the little town, and there was rough.
This text contains the essential points that are taken from the Buddha's teachings. There are other extents of the Lamrim texts that were composed by Lama Tsongkhapa, such as, for example, the Lamrim Chemo, the great exposition on the steps of the path of enlightenment, in which Lama Tsongkhapa also included some discussions, questions and answers, and also points of eliminating debate. And if you have eliminating doubts, and if you don't have a lot of knowledge base, sometimes it's hard to understand all the points that Lama Tsongkhapa mentions in his Lamrim Chemo. This one, however, makes it so much easier. Makes it so much easier to extract all the essential points from the Buddha's teachings and incorporate them into our understanding. So Geshe is encouraging us to still make sure that we continue with the study of this text so that we can have a greater and more complete idea of the teachings of the Buddha. So we're now going to offer a Thanksgiving mandala for the teachings that we've received this year. So Venerable Choki, the great chant master, the Tsultrim.
Then the person offer it to and translate it.
No, offer to Geshe. No, offer to Geshe. Don't offer to Geshe. Oh, Vajraviya, who wants to sing his Sashi. Om Vedanta Chi Tariko Yumiko Weo. Vigya Bodhirasha Lupapo Lo Zambuli No Palanchu Chandrami Lota Lupa Mayantana Yodentan Chodro Daminyan Daminyan Gita Rinpoche Riwo Pa Sankishin Dojo Yoga Mamu Paye Loto Rinpoche Nobo Rinpoche Sumo Rinpoche, Lombo Rinpoche, Lambo Rinpoche, Tatsu Rinpoche, Mapo Rinpoche, Teche Boye Bumbai Ge Ma Chewama Luma Dama, Metoma Dupoma Nasema Chichama, Nima Dawa Rinpoche Du, Chole Namba Gyawe Gyatsen. Usulatami Branjong Pumsu Topa Matawameba Sanshi Do Wadi Dachi Rezawa Pangyupa Chepe Bale Lama Dantan Ke Baduyan Gangi Ge Weshen Yen Chenpo Geshe Punsin Shambo Chengane Tepa Chenbo Musamosh Pakandi Tarangi Ondo Kampo Wagi or Tujendo Ondo Shesuso Shene Dono Anasita Kesenchen Tamchela Tutse Wachen Bogone Chingila Tu Sashi Joshime Chari Rari Nide Adi Sangye Shindu Mike Ido Punanda Shina Shupashu Jetsu Nami Kutsera China Kachi Choshu Lo Sanjinde Jo Me And we'll do some dedication verses. So we'll begin with Supreme Bodhicitta has not arisen, arise and grow. And that which is arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state.
Say,
we were feeling possibly the same benefit and happiness as well. To the incomparably kind dancing God, so I beseech, may all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Several of who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. General dancing God, so I beseech, may all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. There is one more coming, one more coming. There it is. Called the Sub-Zero way, says in the Bible verb of sustaining, preserving, and spreading nationality towards doctrine. For masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers, honoring the three truths, serving of myself and others with example. Please live, live long. The end. Thank you.
On behalf of the Music Institute and for all the students there, I'm sure, I'd like to say thank you so much for these precious teachings, for making accessible Jay's and Kathy's teachings to us in the West. Thank you to translation. Thank you for guiding us through these stages of life so clearly, and understanding our practice in reason, to the way to appreciate the Dharma and how to practice in life to the benefit of others. So thank you so much. And please come and keep teaching us for a long time.
Can I ask please a long time to
If you remain in the SSA for a long time, Geshe might stay for a long time. Emotional blackmail. Yeah, just joking.
Thank you. That's good.